Hello, everyone. Um, so we're going to talk about Cura. Cura is a slicer. Um, this one was built specifically for our Love's Lot printer, and you set up the printer profile last time, selecting a TAS 5. It's possible to have more than one printer listed under here, and you only do that if you need to print on a different printer, etc. But for you guys, it'll be fine. You can see the first time you launch it. I don't know if this is still here now that you've launched it a second time, but this is kind of like their test print icon. So we're not gonna slice that one. If you really want one, we can slice it later and print it. So first of all, well, let's get rid of them. Before I get rid of them, I want to show you that the estimated print time for him is 35 minutes. It's not always accurate. I find that it often takes longer. This time specification is new. They haven't shown that breakdown in previous versions, so that's pretty interesting. Now, with Cura, there are 3 profiles that come with it. One is standard, one is high detail, which means it has, you get better details, but at the cost of a longer print. So you'll see in a minute that it's now going to take 49 minutes. And you can even customize it further. So if you wanted super fine, we could even change some settings. If we look at high speed, you sacrifice some of the detail and ruggedness of it for a quicker slicing time. A lot of times for art and design trinkets, I will print at a faster speed. What I usually do though is I'll start with the standard, and depending on how much time I have and how many jobs I have to print, because I handle most of the printing in the makerspace, I will tweak it from here. Now, and actually, I'm forgetting that we want to change model. So let's click this guy and just hit your delete key. And then you can go to open. And you're going to go to the place where you saved it. And so here's let me sort by date modified, and there's the charger head that I saved earlier. Now you can see that it came in sideways. So one of the decisions you have to make when you're printing an item is the layout of it. So this, for obvious reasons, I hope, would not be the best way to print it, because you can see that there's overhang. So anytime there's overhang, you'd have to use support. And then when you peel off the support, sometimes it leaves little imperfections. So best case scenario is you don't need support. That's not possible with all models. But it is possible with this model, so we will be rotating it. And by the way, I'm using a mouse, and when I right drag the mouse, it lets me orbit so I can see different sides. If I push down on the mouse wheel and drag, it pans and it will zoom to. And the left mouse button is basically reserved for using the tools. So the tools are over here. This is the move tool. So if I don't always want to print in the same place, like the printer floor of my printer, the middle's the most used. So a lot of times I'll take a job and I'll put it at one of the corners so I can put it back there. And I quickly reference these. These change how you're viewing something. So when you click this box, it kind of goes back to the default view. This will look at it from the front. This will look at it from the top. This will look at it from the side. So if you're ever panning around and you don't know where the heck you are, you can click this and get back to home. Okay, so let's say I want it in that position. We've already established that printing it on its side is a bad idea. So we come down here to the rotate box, and I can take the ring and drag it. And you can also just come up here. See, it only did it to 89 degrees. which would cause a little bit of an imperfection, believe it or not. So we're going to switch that to 90. And when I hit tab, it will adjust. This is a handy feature, but I tend to, this is the lay flat tool, and you can see there's already a lot of tool tips here. If for some weird reason I wanted it oriented this way when I printed, I can also use the blue ring. So if you're never sure whether you should use blue, red, or green, it's nice that they also mark the letters in the same color. So if you know you need to rotate on the red ring, you can go up to X because X is red. Okay, so we like the positioning of this. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a scale thing here. So sometimes, especially with art and design students, when I go to print stuff, it might be way too big or way too small. So I will come in here and resize it. What I try not to do is, well, that's not true. Let's say that, I was going to say I don't take off uniform scale, but here's a good reason why it's not true. Let's say that we want a bigger version of this. Right now it's uniform scaling, so even if I pull this direction, it's scaling it uniformly. Now, if I go too big, it'll get bigger than the build plate and it changes the color and says it can't slice because it's too big. Okay, I'll back that down to maybe here. And it still says it can't slice, but if I come back to move and pull this back here, let me look at it from the top. I must be, oh, my hair is a little off. Okay, so now I'm back on the build plate. It actually repositions itself. And I don't know if you noticed, but it was off the floor. Whenever you pull something off the floor, it just repositions itself back there, which is a pretty nice feature too. Okay, so let's go back to scale. And I forgot to look at the time of the original shape. So it's up to 5 hours and 33 minutes. Like if I really wanted this for a clock or something, it would cost me 5 hours. However, I like that it shows the size after scaling. So even though I just pulled that by eye, it's now the X proportion is this way. So from its furthest point to its furthest point, it's 100, so let's say 180 millimeters, which is 18 centimeters, okay? Oh, actually that's wrong. That's the up and down. So it's 18 centimeters up and down, which is, I don't know, 7 or 8 inches. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, okay, you know what, from top to bottom, I want this to be 15 centimeters, so I'll type in 150. And it does, it scales uniformly because this button's still on. Now if I look at it and I go, but 27 might be too thick. In this case, I don't think it is, but let's say it was way too thick or way too tall. I could change this value separately. So I could take off uniform scaling. I could change this to maybe 15, which would give me a 1.5 centimeter height, which is, it's pretty thin actually, but you can see what that does. But sometimes I have to do that because of the time we're giving up. So look, that's down to 2 hours and 23 minutes. So a lot of times I do resize art and design projects, usually for time's sake, or it was a super small, it came out super small because they weren't paying attention to dimensions in Fusion. And then finally, another good feature is I've made all these changes and I'm like, I think I want to go back to my original. Well, you could go back and change all of these to 100%. You could also click this. This resets the size back to its original. It looks like it turned it upside down. It did. That's weird. And so I'm now going to take it and go back to rotate and change this. Oh, not the z-axis. It'll be the y-axis. I'm going to change this by 180 degrees. Oh, I think I'm wrong. Oh, no, I wasn't. Okay, let's just set this to 45. Well, that's interesting. Okay, and I'm going to push it back to the corner. Okay, actually, I'm going to rotate this again. Oops. Okay, and you can go negative too. I'm going to write -90 here if I can get my cursor there. And I'll move it again. Come on. Oh, I just resized it. Sorry, my computer's being a little laggy too. Let's move it to this front corner. Okay. And I don't know why, but I want it facing. Come on, a little more. Okay. Okay, that's all right. I'm going to go back to move. And now we can see it well and the other things aren't in our way. Okay, I've been talking a lot. I'm sorry, but it's kind of the only way to get through this. So I have positioning and I have size set up. I have not looked at these yet. I am going to go ahead and do it now because I don't think it will. No, I'll stop here. So that was about positioning, size, a few other things. So I'll make one more video that will talk about some of these other features.